Welcome to Books and More Audio, where timeless wisdom meets modern understanding. This channel brings you engaging audio summaries of the world's most influential books, lessons that inspire growth, discipline, and freedom. In today's episode, we explore The Richest Man in Babylon by George S. Clason, a classic that reveals the ancient secrets of wealth, prosperity, and financial independence. Through simple yet powerful stories, it teaches how to earn, save, and grow money wisely. Join us to rediscover the enduring principles that can transform your mindset and guide you toward a life of abundance and purpose. The Man Who Desired Gold. Bansir, the chariot builder of Babylon, sat on the low wall outside his workshop, staring blankly at the half-finished chariot before him. His hands were still strong and skillful, yet his heart was heavy. The tools that once rang proudly with purpose now lay silent. For all his years of hard work, his purse was empty, his cupboards bare, and the faint look of disappointment in his wife's eyes weighed on his soul. That morning, he had dreamed of a life filled with gold, comfort, and respect, a dream so vivid it felt real. But upon waking, the cruel truth struck him. He was still poor, still laboring endlessly, and still trapped in want. As the day grew hotter, his friend Kobe, the musician, came by. He too wore the weary look of one who had labored much, yet gained little. Kobe joked about his hunger, hoping to borrow a few coins, but Bansir could only sigh. He had none to lend. The two old friends sat together, silent for a time, each lost in thought. Finally, Bansir spoke what both had long felt but never said aloud. Why, after all these years of work, are we still poor? We have served others, built fine things, and worked with our hands. Yet the rich men of Babylon grow richer, and we remain with empty purses. That question, simple yet profound, marked the beginning of their awakening. They realized that despite their skill and effort, they had never learned the laws that govern wealth. In the city of Babylon, where gold flowed freely through markets and palaces, they were surrounded by riches, but knew not how to claim their share. The thought troubled them deeply. Does the god of wealth favor only a few? Kobe wondered aloud. Or are we blind to the ways of fortune? As they talked, their minds turned to Arkad, once their companion in youth, now known as the richest man in Babylon. Long ago, he had been no wealthier than they were, a humble scribe who carved words upon clay tablets for merchants. Yet today, his name was spoken with reverence. He lived in abundance, but more than that, he was respected as a man of wisdom and generosity. Bansir and Kobe began to wonder what secret Arkad had discovered that they had not. Their conversation grew into resolve. If Arkad had started poor and become rich, perhaps he had learned principles that any man could follow. Perhaps wealth was not the gift of the gods, but the reward of understanding and discipline. "We will go to him," said Bansir, "and ask how he came to possess so much gold, and how we might do the same." As they rose from the wall, a new light shone in their eyes. For the first time, their poverty felt not like a curse, but a challenge. They saw that ignorance, not fate, had kept them poor. If Arkad could learn the language of gold, so could they. That realization filled them with quiet determination. The story of Bansir and Kobe is the story of countless men in every age. Honest workers who labor faithfully but never find the path to wealth. Their awakening teaches that to change one's fortune, one must first change one's understanding. Wealth is not born of luck or inheritance, it is born of knowledge, patience, and purpose. That day, as the sun set over the golden walls of Babylon, Bansir looked once more at his unfinished chariot. The same wood, the same tools, the same hands, yet now a different spirit stirred within him. He no longer dreamed idly of gold, he longed to learn how to earn it. Thus began the journey that would lead him and all of Babylon's seekers of wisdom to the teachings of Arkad, the man who had once been their equal, but through understanding became their guide to lasting prosperity.
And so, from a simple conversation between two tired friends, the timeless wisdom of Babylon was born. That any man, if he truly desires gold and seeks it with knowledge, discipline, and purpose, can make his purse fat and his future secure.
The richest man in Babylon. Arcad, the richest man in Babylon, was not born into wealth or privilege. Once, he was a humble scribe, engraving words on clay tablets for merchants in exchange for a modest wage. Yet today, he stood as the wealthiest and most respected man in the kingdom, admired not only for his riches, but for his wisdom and generosity. One day, his old friends, who had shared his youthful days of learning and play, came to visit him. They were puzzled and even a little resentful. "You had no greater start than any of us," one of them said. "We have worked as hard as you, yet you live in abundance while we remain poor. Tell us, Arcad, how did you come to possess so much gold?" Arcad smiled, not with pride, but with understanding. He told them that, like them, he once struggled, his purse always empty, no matter how hard he worked. "The reason we remain poor," he said, "is not because we lack opportunity, but because we have never learned how to make our money stay with us." He explained that wealth is not a gift from the gods, nor the result of luck, but the outcome of wisdom and discipline. When he was young, Arcad had longed to become a rich man, not for vanity, but because he wished for freedom, the freedom to enjoy life's blessings without worry. While engraving tablets one day, he met Algolmish, a wealthy moneylender. Arcad asked him to share the secret of his success, offering to work through the night to finish a tablet in return for his wisdom. Algolmish agreed, and that very evening he revealed the first and most important law of wealth. A part of all you earn is yours to keep. At first, Arcad found the advice almost too simple, but Algolmish explained, no matter how much you earn, pay yourself first. Save at least 1/10 of all you receive and spend only the rest. That small portion you set aside will become your servant, and in time, your servant's servants will work for you. Arcad took these words to heart. A year later, Algolmish returned and asked what he had done with his savings. Arcad proudly said he had lent it to a brickmaker who was traveling to buy jewels. But the venture failed, and Arcad lost everything. Algolmish laughed gently. "You trusted your gold to the advice of a brickmaker on jewels? Would you ask the bread maker about the stars? Learn this: if you would have gold, seek counsel only from those who know its ways." Arcad obeyed. He began to invest his savings wisely, lending to a shield maker named Agar, a man of skill and integrity. Over time, his gold returned with profit. Yet, in a moment of foolish pride, Arcad spent the profits on fine clothes and feasts. When Algolmish learned of this, he shook his head. "Foolish is the man who kills his children before they can become fathers. Let your gold grow, do not consume it." Years later, when Algolmish grew old, he found in Arcad a worthy student, a man who had learned the discipline of saving, the prudence of investing, and the patience to let wealth multiply. He entrusted Arcad with his estate, saying, "You have learned the laws of gold. Now use them to teach others." Arcad turned to his friends and said, "Gold comes easily and increasing quantity to any man who saves not less than 1/10 of his earnings, invests it wisely under good counsel, and avoids foolish ventures." He reminded them that riches are not built in a day, but through constant practice of these principles. The men left Arcad's home that day with a new understanding. They realized that the secret to wealth was not hidden in chance or the favor of the gods, but in human choice, in the daily decisions to save, invest, and live below one's means. Through Arcad's story, the wisdom of Babylon was revealed, that prosperity begins with discipline, grows through wisdom, and endures through patience. Anyone, regardless of their beginnings, can become rich, not by wishing for gold, by learning and living by the laws that govern it. The 7 cures for a lean purse. When the great king Sargon of Babylon returned victorious from battle, he found his kingdom rich in gold but poor in gold. The people were burdened by debt, struggling to provide for their families, and the city's prosperity was fading. Troubled by this, the king summoned Arcad, the richest man in Babylon, to his court. "You have achieved great wealth," said the king, "while my people grow poorer every year. Teach me, that I may pass your wisdom to all who dwell in Babylon, so the city may be prosperous once more." Arcad bowed humbly and replied, "O king, what I know is not a secret, but a collection of truths that any man may learn. Gold comes gladly to those who understand its laws and follow them with discipline. Allow me to teach your people the 7 cures for a lean purse." And so, a great gathering was held in the Temple of Learning, where Arcad shared his timeless lessons. The first cure: start thy purse to fattening. Arcad began, "For every 10 coins you earn, keep 1 for yourself. Pay yourself first." The crowd murmured, for they had never thought of saving as paying themselves. "We work for others, for merchants, for masters, for our households. But who works for us?" he asked. "Let a part of all you earn be yours to keep. Even the smallest savings will grow mighty in time." The second cure: control thy expenditures. Some will say, "I cannot save, for my earnings barely meet my needs." "But I tell you," said Arcad, "what you call needs are often merely desires in disguise. The more we earn, the more we spend, unless we learn to control our appetite. Budget your gold, so that you may have enough for necessities, some for enjoyment, and still some to save." The third cure: make thy gold multiply. "Gold is a living servant," Arcad explained, "and it labors diligently for the wise owner. Put your money to work. Invest it under the guidance of those skilled in their trade, and your gold will bring forth children and grandchildren in endless generations. The man who lets his gold rest idle in a chest condemns it to die." The fourth cure: guard thy treasures from loss. Many in the crowd nodded solemnly. They knew the pain of failed ventures. Arcad continued, "Be cautious where you entrust your gold. Seek the advice of wise men in business, not of dreamers or gamblers. A small return safely earned is far better than the promise of great riches followed by ruin. Gold flees from the careless and the overconfident." The fifth cure: make of thy dwelling a profitable investment. Arcad raised his voice. "Own thy home. The man who lives in a house he owns feels pride, security, and peace. When you pay rent, you build another man's wealth. But when you own your dwelling, it becomes the foundation of your fortune." The sixth cure: ensure a future income. He then spoke of foresight. "Prepare for the day when you can no longer labor. Provide for your family and for your old age. Invest in ventures that will continue to yield profit even when your strength fails. The wise man plants trees under whose shade he may never sit." The seventh cure: increase thy ability to earn. Finally, Arcad declared, "The more wisdom we gain, the more gold we earn. A man's wealth grows in proportion to his learning and his skill. Sharpen your mind, improve your craft, and the gods of fortune will favor you. Wealth is not only the accumulation of gold, but the growth of ability." When Arcad finished, the great hall was silent. Every word had struck deep into the hearts of his listeners. They realized that wealth was not a mystery, nor the privilege of a chosen few, but the result of simple laws that any man could follow, if only he had the discipline to begin. Arcad concluded, "The cures I have shared are not dreams, but truths proven by my own life. A man who follows them faithfully will find that gold comes to him as a loyal servant. A man who ignores them will forever chase after riches that slip through his fingers like sand." That night, as the people of Babylon left the temple, their steps were lighter and their spirits renewed. For the first time, they carried with them not gold, but something far greater: the knowledge of how to earn, keep, and multiply it. The 5 Laws of Gold. When Arcad had finished teaching the people of Babylon the 7 cures for an empty purse, many returned to him with a new question. Master, now that we have learned how to fill our purses, how may we keep our gold and make it multiply without losing it again? Arkat smiled, for he knew that this was the next great lesson, not how to earn gold, but how to guard and grow it. Listen well, he said, for gold is a faithful servant to the wise, yet a cruel master to the foolish. Let me tell you the 5 laws of gold, which never change as long as men desire wealth. The first law of gold. Gold cometh gladly and in increasing quantity to any man who will put by not less than 1/10 of his earnings to create an estate for his future and that of his family. Arkat explained that gold favors the man who honors it. When one saves diligently, even a little at a time, gold begins to flow naturally toward him. The man who pays himself first, he said, invites wealth into his life. Gold is like a seed. It will not grow in an empty field, but once planted, it multiplies. The second law of gold. Gold labors diligently and contentedly for the wise owner who finds for it profitable employment, multiplying even as the flocks of the field. Arkat taught that idle gold is wasted gold. Gold in a purse is like a lazy slave, he said. But when invested wisely, it becomes a faithful worker that produces offspring. A man must learn to make his money work for him, to lend, to invest, and to trade, always in places where knowledge and prudence guide the way. The third law of gold. Gold clingeth to the protection of the cautious owner who invests it under the advice of men wise in its handling. Here Arkat warned his listeners. Gold is timid, and it flees from those who act without wisdom. Before investing, seek counsel from those who understand the business, those who have succeeded where others have failed. Would you entrust a flock to a man who knows nothing of sheep? He asked. Then why would you entrust gold to one who knows nothing of its ways? The fourth law of gold. Gold slippeth away from the man who invests it in businesses or purposes with which he is not familiar or which are not approved by those skilled in its keep. Arkat recounted how, in his youth, he had once lent his savings to a brickmaker who promised profits from buying jewels. The venture failed, for the brickmaker knew nothing of jewels, and Arkat lost all. I learned then, he said, that gold departs from the fool who trusts in the counsel of the unwise. The promise of quick riches is the most dangerous of all temptations. The fifth law of gold. Gold flees the man who would force it to impossible earnings, or who followeth the advice of tricksters and schemers, or who trusts it to his own inexperience and romantic desires in investment. Arkad's tone grew firm. Greed is the enemy of wealth, he said. Those who dream of doubling their gold overnight will lose it by morning. There is no magic in wealth, only patience, wisdom, and work. Gold grows safely only under the hand of those who respect its laws. The crowd sat in deep silence as Arkad's words sank in. The 5 laws of gold were simple, yet they carried the weight of all human experience. He looked at the people and said, "These laws are eternal. They governed the first merchants who traded grain along the Euphrates, and they govern the traders of today. They will govern your children and your children's children. The man who honors them will find gold filling his purse, flowing through his hands, and working for him even as he sleeps. But he who ignores them will forever chase after lost coins blown away by the wind." As the gathering ended, the people left the Temple of Learning with renewed understanding. They realized that gold was neither cruel nor kind, it was obedient. It served the man who followed the laws of wisdom and deserted the man who defied them. Arkad watched them depart and whispered, "To hold gold is not enough, one must hold wisdom. For gold is but a tool, and the wise man its true master." Thus the 5 laws of gold became one of Babylon's greatest legacies, timeless rules proving that fortune does not favor the lucky, but the disciplined. The meeting with the goddess of luck. The city of Babylon was alive with the sounds of trade and chatter when Arcad, the richest man in the land, gathered once again with his eager students in the Temple of Learning. The topic that day was one that stirred every heart: luck. Many among them believed that fortune was a matter of chance, a gift of the gods that smiled upon some and ignored others. One young man rose and asked, "O Arcad, you have taught us the laws of gold and the ways to grow it, but tell us, how can one win the favor of the goddess of luck? For surely she is the greatest ally of wealth." Arcad paused, smiling gently. "My friends," he said, "men speak much of luck, yet they understand it little. The goddess of luck is not cruel, nor is she blind. She smiles upon those who take action, not upon those who wait." His words silenced the room. "Luck," he continued, "comes to the man who grasps opportunity. The lazy, the fearful, and the indecisive call her unkind only because she does not visit them." He then told a story of a man who once had the chance to buy land near the great gates of Babylon for a modest sum. The man hesitated, waiting for a better price, or perhaps a better time. Months later, another bought the land, and soon the king ordered the building of new walls that ran straight through it. The second man grew rich, while the first lamented his bad luck. "But tell me," said Arcad, "was it bad luck that he hesitated, or bad judgment?" The crowd murmured in understanding. Arcad nodded. Good luck often appears in the close of opportunity. Only the man of action recognizes her face before she passes by. He explained that the goddess of luck loves men who act boldly, yet wisely. The merchant who seizes a fair chance and invests his gold prudently will often make her smile. But the gambler who seeks to win through chance, not labor or wisdom, will find that she turns her back upon him. He warned his listeners against confusing chance with luck. The goddess favors not those who throw dice, but those who prepare their minds and hands for the moment of opportunity. Another student asked, "Then is there no such thing as luck without effort?" Arcad shook his head. "There may be fortune without reason, yes, but it is as fleeting as the desert wind. The man who depends on it will soon find his purse empty again. The only lasting luck is that which follows diligence, preparation, and courage." He reminded them that every man in Babylon, rich or poor, has chances come to him. Yet most do not see them because they fear risk or they wait for certainty. The man who says, "I will wait until I know more," often waits forever. Opportunity does not linger. She knocks softly and departs quickly. The wise man hears her knock and opens at once. To illustrate his point, Arcad spoke of a friend who once lost all his wealth in a failed trade. Instead of despairing, the man studied his mistakes, learned better counsel, and soon built a greater fortune than before. He did not curse luck for abandoning him, Arcad said. He prepared himself to recognize her when she returned. And she did. As the lesson drew to an end, Arcad's voice grew soft but resolute. "My friends, the goddess of luck is ever near to those who keep their eyes open and their hearts brave. She helps those who help themselves. The man who labors, who saves, who seeks wise counsel, and who acts when the time is right, to him she gives her golden smile." The people left the temple that day changed. They no longer blamed fate for their poverty or envied others for their fortune. They understood now that luck was not a favor from the heavens, but the natural companion of courage, preparation, and timely action. And as the sun set over the towers of Babylon, Arcad's final words echoed in their minds. "The goddess of luck walks hand in hand with the man who dares. Seek not her favor through prayers or dreams, but through action."
Part 6. The Gold Lender of Babylon. In the heart of Babylon lived a man named Rodan, a humble spearmaker whose craftsmanship had long served the king's army. One day, to his great surprise, the king rewarded him with 50 pieces of gold for a spear design that had saved many soldiers' lives. Never before had Rodan held so much wealth in his hands, and though his heart was full of gratitude, his mind soon became restless. For with gold came confusion and temptation. His sister came to him, pleading for help. Her husband, a merchant with great dreams but little success, wished to start a new venture. "Lend him your gold," she said, "and he will repay you handsomely." At the same time, Rodan's friends began offering advice of their own, each with plans on how to make his money grow. Torn between affection and fear, he realized he did not know how to decide wisely. So he sought counsel from Mathon, the most respected moneylender in all Babylon, a man known not only for his wealth, but for his prudence and fairness. Mathon welcomed Rodan and listened quietly to his story. Then he smiled and said, "Ah, my young friend, you have learned that having gold is one thing, knowing how to keep it is another." He took out a chest filled with clay tablets and tokens, each marking a loan he had made. Picking up a knotted rope, he said, "This belonged to Nebatar, a camel trader. He borrowed gold to expand his caravans and repaid every coin with interest. He knew his business well, so I trusted him. His success was my success." Then Mathon lifted a small scarab carved of turquoise and tossed it aside. "This one," he said with disdain, "belonged to a fool who dreamed of riches in faraway lands. He borrowed much but returned nothing. His father, a good man, even pledged his own wealth to cover the debt and lost everything for his son's folly. Gold lent unwisely brings not profit, but sorrow." Rodan listened intently, realizing that gold could bless or destroy depending on how it was used. Mathon continued, "When you lend gold, you give away your chance to use it. Therefore, lend only when you are certain it will come back to you. For the borrower's promises are as soft as the desert wind, easily spoken, easily forgotten." He then shared with Rodan 5 principles of lending wisely, lessons carved from years of experience. First, lend only to those who can prove they have the ability and the character to repay. A man may be honest, but honesty alone does not make him wise in trade. A good heart does not guarantee good judgment. Second, demand security for your loan. Gold should never travel without protection. Whether it is land, goods, or collateral, always ensure that the borrower has something to lose, for that keeps his promise strong. Third, seek the advice of men experienced in the borrower's trade. Trust the judgment of those who know the path your gold will take. The lender who acts blindly often loses both gold and friend. Fourth, be cautious of lending to family and friends for emotional reasons. Kindness, Mathon said, can destroy wealth faster than misfortune. Help your sister with advice or opportunity, but not with your purse. For when love blinds reason, gold takes flight. Fifth, remember always that gold grows only when guided by wisdom. The fool thinks lending is generosity, Mathon warned. But lending is a trade, and every trade must be governed by knowledge and caution. Rodan sat in silence as the weight of Mathon's words settled upon him. He realized that his desire to help his sister had been noble, but also naive. If he gave his gold to her husband, who had already failed in business, he would likely lose it all, and his sister's respect along with it. Before leaving, Mathon said gently, "Gold is a patient servant, Rodan. Guard it well and make it work for you, not against you. Remember, better a small profit safely earned than a large one lost in folly. It is wiser to be cautious now than regretful later." Rodan thanked the old moneylender and returned home with a lighter heart and a wiser mind. He decided to keep his gold until he found a venture worthy of it, one that promised steady, secure growth rather than empty hopes. And so, from that day on, Rodan lived by the lesson that has echoed through the ages. Gold is a faithful servant only to those who understand its laws. It does not pity the kind-hearted nor reward the reckless. It obeys the man who rules it with reason and self-discipline. Through Mathon's wisdom, the people of Babylon learned that true wealth is not measured by how much gold a man holds, but by how well he governs it. For in the end, fortune belongs not to the one who receives gold, but to the one who knows how to keep it.
The Camel Trader of Babylon. In the bustling markets of Babylon, beneath the blazing desert sun, there walked a young man named Tarkad, the son of Azor. Once the son of a respected man, he had fallen into hardship, wandering the streets hungry and ashamed. For 2 days he had not eaten. The smell of roasted meat and freshly baked bread filled the air, but he had no coin to buy even a crust. Everywhere he turned, friends avoided him, creditors scowled, and his pride kept him from begging. As he wandered hopelessly through the streets, he came upon Dabasir, the camel trader, a man of great wealth and reputation. Tarkad shrank back, for he owed Dabasir money. But to his surprise, the older man greeted him kindly and offered him food. As they sat together, Dabasir looked at the young man with understanding eyes and said, "Tarkad, I too once knew hunger. I too once felt the weight of debt and disgrace. Let me tell you my story, for perhaps it may show you the road from poverty to freedom." Dabasir began his tale. "I was once a slave," he said simply. "But before that, I was much like you, foolish and careless. I worked as a camel herder and earned good wages, yet I spent them all on pleasures and fine things. When my gold was gone, I borrowed more. My debts grew like weeds, until I could no longer repay them. In shame, I fled Babylon, leaving behind those who had trusted me." He spoke of how he had wandered the desert, penniless and desperate, until one day he was captured by desert raiders and sold into slavery in Syria. "There," Dabasir said, "I was bought by a kind master, whose wife treated me not with cruelty but with compassion. One evening she said to me, 'If you have within you the soul of a free man, you can again be free. But if you have the soul of a slave, you will remain one, even in freedom.' Her words struck deep in my heart. I realized then that my slavery was not of chains, but of spirit, forged by my own weakness, my own foolishness." With renewed determination, Dabasir escaped his captors and journeyed across the desert. The sands burned his feet, and thirst nearly claimed his life, but he pressed on. "For I had decided," he said, "that I would rather die a free man than live a slave to my own failings." After many hardships, he finally returned to Babylon, weary but alive, and with a heart ready to change. Upon his return, Dabasir went to his creditors, men who had long despised him, and humbly asked for a second chance. Some refused to forgive him, but others, moved by his honesty, agreed to let him repay little by little. Dabasir divided his earnings carefully, 1/10 for himself, 2/10 to pay his debts, and the rest for his living expenses. "It was hard at first," he said, "but soon I found joy in seeing my debts shrink and my freedom return." Over the years, his discipline and persistence transformed him. The man who had once fled from his obligations became one of Babylon's most respected merchants. His camels carried goods across deserts, his name was trusted in every marketplace, and his purse grew fat, not because of fortune, but because of character. He looked at Tarkad and said gently, "Poverty is not a curse, my boy. It is only a teacher. Debt is not defeat unless you accept it. Each man must choose whether he will live as a slave, chained by fear, laziness, and excuses, or as a free man, guided by honesty, work, and resolve." Tarkad listened with tears in his eyes. The story of Dabasir stirred something within him, not pity, but hope. For the first time, he understood that wealth was not merely gold, but mastery over oneself. Dabasir handed him a coin and said, "Take this, Tarkad, not as a gift, but as a symbol. You may keep it only if you promise that today will be the last day you allow hunger or debt to rule over you." Tarkad nodded, clutching the coin as though it were a sacred oath. As they rose to leave, Dabasir's words lingered in the air like a blessing. "The soul of a free man looks forward to progress. The soul of a slave longs only for rest. The choice, my friend, is yours and yours alone."
From that day on, Tarkad worked with renewed purpose, repaying his debts, rebuilding his honor, and walking the same path that had once led Dabasir from slavery to prosperity. And thus, the camel trader's lesson became one of Babylon's greatest truths: that freedom and wealth are born not from luck or gold, but from courage, discipline, and the unwavering will to rise again.
The luckiest man in Babylon. Under the vast night sky of the desert, a group of merchants and travelers gathered around a campfire, their faces glowing in the warm flicker of the flames. Among them was Kalabab, a wise and seasoned camel trader who had once been a trusted servant in the house of Arkad, the richest man in Babylon. The men asked him to share a tale, one that could teach them the secret to lasting wealth and true fortune. Kalabab smiled and began. I shall tell you the story of Nomasir, the son of Arkad, a man who became known as the luckiest man in Babylon. Yet his luck was not born of chance, but of wisdom, discipline, and courage. When Nomasir reached manhood, his father called him and said, "My son, I have given you the teachings that made me wealthy. But wisdom not lived is wisdom wasted. You must go into the world and prove yourself. I will give you 2 gifts, a bag of gold and a clay tablet engraved with the 5 laws of gold. After 10 years you shall return to me. If you come back rich and wise, I shall know you have earned the right to inherit my fortune." Filled with confidence, Nomasir left Babylon, believing his gold alone would bring him success. For a time, fortune seemed to favor him. He lived well, made bold ventures, and trusted easily. But soon, poor judgment and the deceit of others drained his purse. He invested in ventures he did not understand, believed in promises that proved false, and spent lavishly on comfort and entertainment. Before long, he was left with nothing, a stranger in a foreign land, his gold gone, his friends vanished. Desperate and ashamed, Nomasir found himself at an inn, hungry and penniless. In that dark moment, he remembered the second gift from his father, the clay tablet he had long neglected. Taking it from his bag, he read the 5 laws of gold engraved upon it. As he read, each word struck him like lightning, revealing the folly of his ways. The first law reminded him that gold comes gladly to the man who saves at least 1/10 of his earnings for his future and that of his family. The second law told him that gold labors diligently for the wise owner who puts it to profitable use. The third law warned that gold clings to the protection of the cautious who invest under sound advice. The fourth law declared that gold slips away from the man who invests in ventures he does not understand. And the fifth law warned that gold flees from the man who seeks impossible profits or follows the advice of tricksters and dreamers. For the first time, Nomasir truly understood his father's wisdom. He realized that the problem was not bad luck, but his own ignorance. He decided to start anew, not with gold, but with knowledge and determination. He began working for a wise merchant, offering diligence and honesty in exchange for a small wage. Each month, he kept 1/10 for himself, lived modestly, and studied his trade. In time, he earned trust and greater responsibility. When an opportunity arose to invest in a caravan venture, he applied the laws of gold carefully, seeking advice from experienced traders. The journey was successful, and his gold multiplied. Nomasir did not squander his success. He reinvested wisely, diversified his ventures, and avoided the traps that once ruined him. Gold flowed steadily into his hands, and more importantly, he learned to make it work for him. Over the years, he became known throughout the region as a fair and prudent man, respected for both his wealth and his character. 10 years later, Nomasir returned to Babylon. When he entered his father's home, Arkad looked upon him and saw not a boy, but a man transformed. "Tell me, my son," said Arkad, "what have you learned of wealth?" Nomasir bowed and replied, "Father, I learned that gold is a faithful servant to the wise, but a cruel master to the foolish. I lost the gold you gave me, but I gained understanding. I followed the 5 laws of gold, and by doing so, I have built greater wealth than I ever imagined.
My fortune, like yours, is founded upon knowledge and discipline, not luck." Arcot embraced his son and said, "You have learned the greatest truth of all, that fortune favors the prepared mind. You are truly your father's son, and indeed the luckiest man in Babylon." Kalabab ended the story as the fire crackled low. The listeners sat in silence, reflecting on the message. Luck, they realized, was not the gift of the gods, nor the whim of chance. It was the reward of those who act with wisdom, restraint, and courage. And as the stars glittered above the desert, Kalabab's final words echoed in the stillness. "The luckiest man is not he who finds gold by chance, but he who learns the laws that make gold come to him, again and again."